Segunda Beach is booming, and it's officially outgrown its current city hall. Usually, a project this large would mean years of red tape and budgetary battles, but somehow, it only took a quick nudge to the state to secure significant funding. Why the money was granted so easily is a mystery, but for a city in need, it's better not to ask. With funding secured, Mayor Beacon challenges city staff to think bigger than a simple office building. The city's planner responds by holding a series of closed-door design charrettes where city staff spends points to lay out an expansion of the Segunda Beach Civic Center. They coalesce around a plan where the city would acquire large chunks of the Juniper Terrace neighborhood and scrape the land clean. The existing Kennedy Street couplet would be reconfigured into a bidirectional arterial, and existing blocks would be restructured to make way for new, larger buildings. This complex would include a new city hall, a regional bike hub, a new tram station, and a park for weekly farmers markets. Segunda Beach Metro has wanted trams for years, but this project finally provides the capital to make it happen. But for the rest of the amenities to pencil out, the city would also have to allow for much higher density in adjacent blocks to make the new development viable. By the time the vision for the city hall complex is presented to the public, the plan seems so far along that most participants think the cake is already baked. This process and the lack of transparency sits especially poorly with one resident, Ralph Wong. Ralph fought the last encroachment into his neighborhood and lost, so this time he was ready. He went door to door to organize neighbors, but many were first-generation immigrants reluctant to rock the boat. Most simply accept the city's relocation offers, moving further from the downtown in their community as a result. And while Ralph is disappointed, he understands. For families who've had to work so hard just to be here, the risk of fighting City Hall is just too high. Now, while leveling buildings for a new city hall was a tough pill to swallow, what truly left Ralph incensed was the plan to level homes simply to widen Kennedy Street, especially when it became clear that Mayor Beacon was lobbying for a gas station in one of the newly cleared corners. But rather than just staying angry, Ralph submits paperwork to run for city council. And even as the neighborhood disappears around him, enough residents remain to form a base of support. And he is easily swept into office by a community that feels abandoned by the planning process. In a poetic bit of irony, as the final nails are being driven into City Hall, Ralph is sworn in to serve inside the building he fought so vociferously against. Ralph's election shifts the entire gravity of Segunda Beach. Whether it's for the better or for the worse remains to be seen. But either way, bulldozers are already moving. This project's an invasive overhaul that will reshape the city forever, fundamentally reshaping this neighborhood and bringing the city its second skyscraper. And today, we're gonna build it. And if you're excited to see a bit of urban renewal, hit the like button. And if you're skeptical, hit the like button for that too, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Or just leave an emoji representing change for the sake of engagement. And if you're not subscribed, please consider doing so you don't miss out on future episodes in the series. But before we jump in, the other day, my kids asked me what my favorite classes were in school. I think they were expecting me to say something like math or science, but instead I surprised them by saying computer networking and money management. I took both of those classes my senior year of high school, and I still use the knowledge that I gained in those classes nearly every single day. The money management class in particular has been transformational for my life. Whether you're saving up for a car, a trip, buying a house, or just making your everyday bills, understanding your finances is absolutely critical and one of the most valuable skills you can learn. And that's one of the reasons that I love today's video sponsor, Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you track your spending, set budgets, and cancel unwanted subscriptions. And it's what I personally use to stay on track towards my goals. Essentially, Rocket Money automates all the manual work that I learned how to do back in the day. By securely linking all your accounts, you get a clear bird's eye view of your entire financial life all in one place. And it's a game changer because it catches those small spending habits that usually fly under the radar. For example, if you go out to lunch twice a week and spend a pretty average $12.99, do you know that adds up to over $1,350 per year? Rocket Money helps you spot those trends and shows you exactly where you can cut back so that you can reach your goals. It even identifies recurring charges and lets you cancel unwanted subscriptions within the app in just a few taps. So take control of your money. Go to rocketmoney.com/cityplanner to get started for free. That's rocketmoney.com/cityplanner. Thanks again to Rocket Money for sponsoring another video. Now let's get back to it. All right, we're going to begin with a bit of site preparation and reconfiguration of the roadway layout of this area. And there's going to be quite a few changes. We're going to be basically eliminating most of what we have right here in Juniper Terrace over till about right here and then everything along Kennedy Street. That's where I want to begin. Now, we're also going to eliminate everything right here, and this is for site viability. We're basically going to increase the density right here. So now it's time to reconfigure these blocks, but I'm not really sure how to do that because we're going to be reconfiguring the blocks around a couple of buildings. For this first block right here, we're going to have our park and our tram depot, and the width is going to be dictated by the parking that we just removed. So I'm going to place that one building right now, our parking ramp. Now I'm going to eliminate Jefferson and Kennedy right here and then spin around this parking structure. And that's because I want this to feel like one cohesive block, and closer to the end of the project, it'll make more sense. Now we're gonna do something very similar for the block right here, and City Hall is gonna dictate the width of this block. And we've got the absolute greatest City Hall, the Ventura City Hall asset by who else? Mac Welshman. I'm gonna temporarily just place that right here. And I say temporarily because I'm gonna do a little bit of asset deconstruction like I always do. We'll spin this thing around. And then I'm gonna center this right about there in between these 3 blocks. You might look at this and go, what is he doing? There's a parking lot going through a road. Don't you worry about that. We are going to get rid of all the parking. So I'll just delete these using the Better Bulldozer. I'll also get rid of all the parking stalls, all these lights, and these decals right here. Now I won't get rid of this whole surface. I'll do something like that. And then I'm noticing lots of landscaping over here that's part of this asset. I'll unfortunately have to get rid of all of this and all these surfaces over here. Okay, that is looking much more like I want it to look, but I need to make sure that it's straight. So I'm gonna draw the new Kennedy Street in, and you can already see where it's gonna end. And now I'll get this thing perfectly centered. That's looking pretty good right there. Now I can't overlook all this landscaping, so I'm just gonna get rid of it. And now we can move on to building the rest of our roads. So I want Kennedy Street right here to turn into Civic, and then have Civic turn into Kennedy right here. So I'll just go over the top of the existing street. And then we'll do the exact same thing right here. But actually, I probably should get this upgraded first, at least a portion of it. And now I'm ready for this connection. I'll just start here, go into Civic, and pull it down until it stops corrupting. That is looking really, really, really slick. Now we're gonna take this up to the next level. A little bit of lane math right here. 3 lanes in, 1 lane up. We've already got our 2 over. Then we'll go 3 right here, 1 right here. I'm gonna keep this segment bi-directional. We'll go 1 lane right here and 2 into the new Kennedy bi-directional segment. And now we've got to extend this new Kennedy segment all the way down here. So more eminent domain. And then we should take the old Kennedy and make it bi-directional. Now, before we clean everything up, there's one more street that I want to add, and that's going to be right here. You can see Vermont is an alley, and so is Jasmine Lane. This is going to be a parcel where we have a ton of density, and I want to have a complete block around it. So I'm going to upgrade these and then connect them. And that should work out really well for us. So now I want to clean things up here. We've got a whole bunch of roadway hierarchy issues. We've got signals everywhere. We've got to clean all of that up. Now basically anywhere where we have 3 lanes, we got a traffic signal. So I'm going to remove all of those. Then using traffic, I'll set priorities. Now we have priority right everywhere, so let's remove some of these extra crosswalks because there are a lot of them. Now I want to add some street trees to basically every arterial, and I'm going to preserve the age of these and use mature trees only. I love that we can do that now. Now, one of the unfortunate things is that on these 3-lane streets, I can't actually add the grassy terrace. So when I detail, I'm going to need to add some sort of a planter box. Next, I want to extend bike infrastructure into the area. So basically, because we're so close to the Pacific Avenue bike corridor, I'm just going to pull this right into the neighborhood. I'll send it all the way around. Then I'm also going to send it all the way up Kennedy. Just imagining that as a new road, we are planning for the future here. And then I'm also going to place it on the couplet. Now, interestingly, it has not extended right here. I'm going to see if I can modify this with Move It at all. So Move It did nothing there, but I was able to use the lane connector tool to get these to link up, and it looks a ton better. I'm also thinking I should clean this up. I'll remove unsafe and U-turns. And I've actually got extra lanes right here, so I'll get rid of those. And that looks good, but knowing that I can make this road look even better, I'm gonna try. And that looks better in my opinion, but we've got to fix this one too. And then one more. Kennedy Street does a weird pinch in right here. Now that is looking smooth. There's only one more thing to do, and that's fix all of our naming. And then we've also got to change our neighborhood boundaries. And that is a much better reflection of the reality on the ground. So with our site prepped and our roads laid out, let's move on to placing our buildings. I've given a lot of thought to building placement and have ideas for basically every one of these blocks. For this one right here, we're going to place a skyscraper. This is going to be the second one that our city gets, and it's going to be a little node of activity. Right back here, we're going to have an apartment building. I'm going to go with the Mediterranean heritage assets in this area and try to make it feel like a fairly modern apartment. Right here, I'm going to place a mall. Right here, we're going to place a bar, and I'll talk about that as I place it, why that's so important to me. And then right here, I want to place a high-density commercial building. Behind City Hall, we're going to have a major park, our tram station, and then our bus station. And then along Kennedy Street, we're going to place a gas station, some row homes, and then if we get some office demand, probably some offices right here. And then we'll round everything out with 2 city service buildings. We're going to place an elementary school right here. This will be in replacement of the suburban UK elementary school that we eliminated earlier. And then right here, we're going to place our tram depot. This is basically the largest parcel available within the heart of Segunda Beach that would be appropriate for this kind of use. And even though a tram depot would be loud, I think it's going to be better than what we have right here currently, and hopefully it'll make these residents a bit happier. The only unfortunate thing about this location is we're going to have to route through all these timed traffic lights, so we're going to have to basically modify all of those, but we will cross that bridge when we set up all of our routing. Let's begin over here. I'm going to place the skyscraper first, and I already know what I want to go for, the Seaworth building. The reason I want to go for this is it has an international style that I think will be able to bend to fit Segunda Beach really well. It's also not overwhelmingly tall, so it feels relatively appropriate in the community, and look at the size of this. We'll need to use Anarchy to place it, but it's basically the perfect size for this parcel. Now, this building has an upgrade that we probably don't need. I'm going to end up placing it anyway because it's going to make the building feel more substantial, but it's the City Hall. This will reduce our import costs and our base building upkeep, so it'll be a good thing for us. We've got plenty of money, and again, I just want the building to feel a little bit bigger. Now, I think that this building is far too dark for what I'm going for in Segunda Beach, so I'm going to recolor this thing. I can't use the vanilla recolor though because I have a sub building and I can't recolor that. So I will be using the recolor mod, and I want to go fairly light for this building. And that is about what I want to do. So I will copy this and then paste it onto the sub building. That is perfect. And I love how light that is. That feels so good. And you can see in comparison to our other tower, it's right in line with that. And it certainly doesn't feel gigantic. Now to the left of this, we're going to be placing a mall, the Fashion Square. Now, the funny thing about this is the whole reason I want to place this asset is because it has this angled side that I think is going to look really good here. So yes, it's a square, but I feel like it fits really nicely around this angle. The only thing that we're going to have to do is get rid of the fencing right here and this fountain right here. And that should work well for us. I'm also noticing that we have a bit of street parking right here. I did not intend for that to be the case. So we'll add a wide sidewalk. Perfect. Now I've got very specific commercial assets in mind for this area right here. First thing I want to do though is turn on my topo toggle, and let's grade this site out a little bit. Now for the assets here, these will both be commercial, but one's going to be low density. And I want to go with European waterfront buildings. And I want a building that has a very strong corner presence. I feel like this building with the rounded corner kind of mirrors what I was trying to do up here, and it would fit this space very, very well. Just want to see if we have a larger variant of this though. It looks like we have a 5x6, so just slightly bigger, but I think it's going to feel a ton better. And that looks pretty good right there. I think I am going to adjust City Hall though, just a little bit. And that's because things are getting away from us right here. We're likely going to need to make some modifications when we detail to make this look good. but we'll cross that bridge when the time comes. And next to this, I want to go with a fairly substantial commercial building. We'll go with a 6x6 commercial asset, but I want to make sure that it's not a hotel. This is just supposed to be a general commercial asset. And I feel like something like this could work really well for us so long as I can recolor it. It is taller than most of the older buildings in the area, but not taller than our skyscraper, and it doesn't overwhelm the other buildings around it. But again, I want this color to be fairly light, so I'm going to whiten it up. That recolored really well. For the middle color, I would like to make this feel a bit more, I don't know, Miami. So maybe we'll go with like a pink. That was not the play. That's not good. So perhaps the third color. Oh, there we go. I like that. That nice accent. Just a splash of pink. It's all that we need. And I think that on this particular building, all of these advertisements are really distracting. So I'm going to remove them all and let the building feel a little bit more nondescript. Then I just want to shift things around to make this feel a little bit more planned out. I feel like that does the trick for us. Now, moving on to this block, things look really rectangular and it seems like we should be able to zone this in, but you guys know how it goes. That is not going to be the case. What I'm going to do is clean up the zoning. I know that I used a lot of zoning toggles in this area, so I'm just going to restore the zoning because I think it'll make things easier for me. Then I want to place the buildings manually. I think I'm going to go for 3x3 assets, Mediterranean heritage, and I want to have the same building level. Now, I think I'm going to go with a building level 1 just because they're a little bit shorter and I don't want these buildings to overwhelm the single family homes behind them because they're not going anywhere just yet. So I'm going to place these just like that, all by my lonesome. And now I want to normalize the height of all of these. So I'll grab this corner over here and everything shifts. And that's looking pretty good right there. Now I'm going to grab all of these and try to perfectly center them within the block. And then we have to lock all of these in place. And I think that the final piece of the puzzle here is just making sure that we have the same colors everywhere. And I'm going to use the recolor mod for this because it'll be faster. I think I might lighten this one up as well. And bring that all the way around. Oh, that looks so good. Oh, one more thing that we have to do though to make this feel more Californian. There's a lot of satellite dishes. That's pretty unusual. So I'm going to get rid of all of those. And that is looking really good. I feel like this looks like one of the buildings that I lived in when I was in California. So that is exactly the vibe I was going for. This is shifted over just a little bit though. So as much as I hate to continue moving this thing around, we have to. And I think that that will do the trick for us. Beautiful. So let's move on to our park. And I want to place this terrace plaza. I feel like this is going to fit really nicely in between these roads right here. And then if we use Move It, we can back this thing up and center it nicely. And my plan is going to be to extend some of these sidewalks out so that you could walk to the parking structure, the tram station, the bike center right here, and then City Hall. Kind of make it feel very, very, very connected to everything. Next, we'll place that bike center, and it'll just be a large bicycle parking hall. Actually, that feels too big. We'll go with the normal bike parking hall. Maybe to make up for that, I'll add a large bicycle parking storage to the City Hall itself. When I was working for the City of Madison, in the rear of the facility, we had a little spot like this where you could bring your bike in. And now, much like the City of Madison, this is kind of an appendage onto a historic building. And I think that's more respectful of the way the building looks right now. And that reminds me, I never told you why I placed the bar. Basically, the thought process was if you're a city staffer after work, you could walk over to this bar. If you're on city council, maybe you go over there as well. Maybe everyone sees each other over there, but no one interacts with people outside of their groups, but it's the place that everyone goes. When I was working in the suburban community, there was a bar like this where you would see lots of elected officials and city staffers. The reason why is it was close to City Hall and they had good burgers. That's good enough. So that's what this bar is all about. Anyway, back to our park complex. I'm going to search for the tram station because we don't have it unlocked just yet. And I want to go with the tram loop station. It's going to fit perfectly right here. Though I think I want to get it close to the bike center so it feels like this is one complex. Then we can use Move It to center these within the block and center them within the park. That's really nice. What's not so nice is all the things happening to the terrain. We'll need to come up with other solutions while we're detailing, but that's a start. The other thing I'm noticing, we've done lots of ugly things to the road. I just want to remove all these crosswalks. That is legitimately crazy that they're all right there. The other thing I want to think about right now is a crossing right here, so you can cross from the park to City Hall. And now we're on to Kennedy Street. And this is probably going to be one of the more controversial parts of this build. So we're going to rip out all these trees right here. And I got to tell you, I was on a project like this where there was a line of trees behind homes, and some of the property owners felt like it was on their property, like they had some ownership in it. And redevelopment occurred behind the properties, and the whole line of trees got ripped out. And that was one of the most painful processes that I ever had to go through. Not just because the homeowners were upset, but the trees were mature, 100-year-old trees. They were absolutely beautiful, but unfortunately, the city didn't have the ability to preserve them because they didn't own them, and the residents that wanted to preserve them, well, it wasn't theirs either. Anyway, this will be a fairly similar situation. We're going to replace those beautiful trees with a gas station. This will be a 3x3, and I think I'll go with the level 5 and just place that right here. This would be a highly desirable location for a gas station right on a major arterial. I don't know that there's another gas station close by, and the traffic volumes on this street would be absolutely incredible. And with this place right here, Mayor Beacon is now happy that he has a gas station that he can go to on the way to City Hall. Now, next to this, we're going to have a whole bunch of row homes, and I'm going to use platter to place these. So I'm going to snap to the side of the road, to the parcels themselves, and the parcel corners. And then I'll start in this corner over here. And I wasn't sure if I'd be able to sneak one in over here. Looks like they're a little bit too big. So I'll just get rid of the platter parcel, and we'll keep the buildings themselves. Now, I was really hoping that we would get some office demand. Unfortunately, we didn't. Still, I think I'm going to zone this for offices. It feels like an appropriate transition into this area. And I want to be really specific about this. So once again, we'll use platter. But this time around, I'm going to snap to the grid because this is a perfect grid. And I'm basically only using platter because I want to control the size of the zones and their direction. Hopefully someday those fill in. Now onto our replacement elementary school. We've got a city-owned parcel right here. And though it's not the flattest parcel and though we have the highway right here, I think it's probably big enough for an elementary school. I'm going to remove this path temporarily and then place one of these Mediterranean heritage elementary schools. Now, this has 1,000 student capacity, which is exactly what our UK suburban primary school had, but I noticed something that's pretty concerning. We have a major shortage in elementary school capacity, so I feel like we have to add the upgrade and maybe even find a home for one more elementary school. And this certainly makes this a much larger facility, but it is an elementary school after all, and most people can get behind this. We'll get rid of some of these trees here. Then add our path back. And then I want to fix the blobby surfaces. You can see that the surface is bleeding into the path. That's both a neat feature and an annoying one, but thankfully, all we have to do is use the area bucket, replace the surface, and it fixes the blobbing. And I knew I was going to do that. And that's looking a ton better. Clean up a little bit of this landscaping going through the path. And then I'm going to use the network tool to improve this slope because this looks pretty crazy. And I can get that to 1.5%, which is much more reasonable. And then the last thing I want to do here is add a sound wall. We got to think of the children. And that right there is probably good enough. But we have to find a home for one more elementary school. We're going to get sidetracked for just a moment. And I think that this is probably a good location. There are no elementary schools over here. I'm not sure how that happened. Now, I think we're going to use a little bit of eminent domain right about here because there's a fairly flat pad. And then I'm going to see if we can fit a USA Southwestern elementary school in here. That's way too big. So even though this doesn't provide a ton of capacity, I think we're going to add a small elementary school in here. And we'll add some extensions. And by some extensions, I mean one. That's all we can fit. But thankfully, this does fit this site really well. And even though it's only 500 students that can go here, it's hard to be upset by that. And finally, it's time for our tram depot. So the first thing I want to do is de-zone everything over here. then decommission it. And then we have to clear some landscaping. But this isn't really about the landscaping. I put a bunch of fences down here and I want to get rid of those. And if I just get rid of everything, the fences will go along with it. Now I want to grade this site out. And it seems like there's actually quite a bit of drop back here. So this is going to be really good for us. Yeah, that is a couple of meters. And then finally, we'll place our tram depot, but we're going to have to unlock that first for 2 development points when we only have 126 available. Perfect. Now, I don't think that this is going to fit here perfectly, but we can modify the asset to make it work. And I don't think we're going to have to do a ton, but you can see in the back here, we've got some weird stuff happening with these tanks. So I'll get rid of those and the other props back here as well. I'll also get rid of this fencing. We'll replace that later on and then modify this surface. And lastly, it looks like we have some landscaping back here as well. So we'll get rid of that. Now we do have some line work that I can't get rid of. We'll just cover that up with landscaping. No harm, no foul. And you know, I think there's one more thing that I want to do. We've got some extra space right here. And if the city owns this, they're going to want to provide housing. So I think that we're going to take this building and clone it right across the street. You know, maybe this isn't ideal, but I have a feeling that this is going to be a better neighbor than what was here before, and extra housing is extra housing. I'm going to try to center this a little bit more though, but it won't be totally there because I'm going to preserve this line of trees. And during detailing, I'll add another one right back here. And with that, all of our buildings are in place. And would you look at this? We got office demand back, and our office buildings are spawning in down here. That is a thing of beauty. So with our buildings in place, let's establish our tram routes. Now, though we're going to be building out our tram system, it's not going to be a complete system that touches every corner of the city. This is just going to be the start. And because of that, we're going to be linking up some major destinations, including the university, the train station, civic center, and then obviously our depot. I think this is going to be 2 separate routes. The main route is going to go from the depot to the civic plaza and then to the university, basically along Kennedy and Segunda Beach. The other route will go back and forth between our tram loop station, the train station, and the university. And that one will have fewer stops and be much faster. So let's start laying some track, and I'm going to pause the game while we do this. And the main reason for that is it's going to break all of our timed traffic lights, which is going to be a pretty big bummer. But I'm going to begin down here, and we will start out by adding tram tracks along here. I think I'm going to convert this segment right here, knowing the number of trams that we're going to have going up and down, to be transit only. And then we'll send our trams down Walnut. Now, the unfortunate thing is this is going to screw up all of our lanes and our lane math. So what I think I'm going to do is add lanes right here. So we'll make this a consistent 8 lanes. But I feel like it's important to remind you that this is not 8 lanes of vehicular traffic. It's the 6 lanes of vehicular traffic that we had before, plus 2 tram lanes. So that's why we're doing this. Now I'm going to add the center medians and 1 palm tree. Now this won't be the height of realism, but this gas station is encroaching upon the road. Not anymore. We're good to go. Now from here, I think it's pretty straightforward. Actually, it's not. We need to add lanes right here. We'll add those once again. I'd love to add some more right here, but we would drop lanes if I go with center running. Unless, of course, I don't add stops. I think I have to. I think I have to serve this ped bridge. So we'll just add all the capacity right here and then basically need to modify everything right here. It's totally broken. Then let's add those medians, bump these buildings back, and then clean up some of this landscaping that got kind of out of hand. There's also a weird pillar issue happening right here. Not sure what that's all about. So I'll just redraw this thing in, and honestly, it's probably for the best that we could clear the trams. And then there's some funky stuff happening right here with the road. So we'll get that cleaned up. Back to adding tram track. We're going down here. And I'm a little bit concerned that we're going to lose lanes. So I'm going to call a mulligan on what we've done on Kennedy Street. And rather than having center running, I think we go with that. Now it's time to head down the couplet. We'll go all the way to here, all the way around. Then we're going to run into the exact same issue here where we're dropping lanes. As much as I don't want to do that, I think over here we might be a little bit more okay from a space standpoint. So we'll jump up to the 6 lane. And then I don't lose my vehicular travel lanes. Unfortunately, here we have to drop back down again. And we're once again mixed in traffic. We're going to wrap this down Segunda Beach Boulevard, then towards the university, and then down straight into it. Now, I think along Segunda Beach Boulevard, I will convert this so that we don't lose lanes. But by the university, I'm okay dropping the lane going into here. That's more of a collector. So that will be our treatment. And then I'm going to add palm trees along the side of the road. I'm guessing I can't. Oh, I can. I can add the grassy terrace. That makes me feel better about all of this. And now for our second route, we're not actually adding all that much more track. Basically just heading up here. And then at 7th, we're going to run down the road till we get to the Kennedy couplet. And that's basically the entire route. We do need to preserve this capacity though. So again, we're mixing in traffic, but we'll make sure that we're adding trees. And I'll get rid of all the parking along 7th as well. We want to prioritize the trams. Perfect. Next, I want to add all of my stops. So we're going to begin way over here. And one of the nice things about being center running right here is it means that this can be our turnaround stop. So we'll add one right here. Then we'll go a couple blocks up to the Gateway Shopping Center, have a stop on both sides of the road. We'll go a few more blocks up and stop by the gas station. Our next stop can be the tram station. Then we'll go a couple more blocks right in front of our tower right here. Mayor Beacon is going to demand a stop in front of City Hall. So we'll place one right here. And that one's super redundant with this, but you know, sometimes politicians gonna politician. Then we'll come over here. This one's the route heading towards the university. So we'll have one right here near Main and another near our other tower. Our next stop will be right in front of the cemetery. Then our next stop after that will be the elementary school. Now we get into some shared stops. So I want to get these a little ways back from this intersection. Right here and right here. Our next stop will be after the intersections. Then we're going to have a stop right along this street. And then our final stop at the university, which will fix that track right there. Now I'm going to establish this route right away, just so we can make sure that it's working. And that is just about perfect. Wonderful. So now let's establish our second route. First stop at the tram loop station. Second one will be on 7th. We actually haven't added the stop yet, so I'll add that. Mid-block. Then we'll have one in front of the train station. A couple blocks back from there, probably right there. And that's probably all that we need. Now let's get that route established. Again, we start here. Then we'll go up 7th. Stop in front of the train station. Go up and down Segunda Beach Boulevard. And then the university before looping back around. And I will add that one stop in front of the City Hall because mayor. Now you might be wondering why we're still on pause. And the main reason for that is all of our timed traffic lights are broken. I'm also concerned about the vehicles that we're going to get on these tram routes because I have a whole bunch of custom ones in here. Yeah, we have a small modern streetcar. I'm going to switch that up for the tram. We'll make this depot to university. Set the number of vehicles to 4 to begin, and that'll be our blue line. The other route will be Civic Center to University. I'll make this one red. And again, this one I think maybe we'll go with 3 vehicles. And we don't want the Chuckle People Mover. That's not the appropriate one here. We want the tram. Now I can start to resume this, so I'm going to, but there's a lot of work to do here. You can see all of my lane work is now incorrect and all of my time traffic lights are broken. So I'm just going to show you one example of what I'm going to do, and then I'll do all the rest on my own. Basically, it'll be going and looking for stuff like this. I'm going to remove unsafe and U-turns and then unnecessary movements. I'm also going to be looking for intersections like this, where all these movements aren't really necessary or helpful. For instance, I think a right in, right out right here would be more than enough. This through movement is not useful. I guess for the sake of the buses, that is necessary. Then I've got to adjust the traffic lights here. And what I'm looking for is not a wholesale revamp of everything, but you can see that I'm missing some movements here. So as I go through, there is no tram movement. So as it currently sits, the tram will never make it through here because the tram is not allowed to go through here. So I need to look at this movement, for instance, and allow the trams. You can also allow pedestrians through at that point, at least over here. We could have a through movement because nothing else is happening. And that right-hand turn can occur as well. And the interesting thing is phase 2 and 3 right here are essentially the same, which means that we're missing movements. And I think I figured out why. We're missing some of those left-hand movements that I wanted to get rid of. Also, I don't think that we have a through movement through here. I have to allow that. Otherwise, it will gum everything up. And I realized I could just yield into that movement and permit that on both of these phases. And then on the transit phase, I have to have that. Otherwise, the tram could get stuck behind a bus, for instance, or a taxi. So now this light is complete. So we have to look at the other half. And it looks like the U-turns have come back. So I'll get rid of those. And the orange phase is a missing phase. So we can see that for phase 3, if we were just to add the tram, the ability to go through, that would solve all of our problems. So I'll just add that. I still want to look at the other phases to see if there are other modifications that I should make, but honestly, this looks pretty good. And with that, these two signals should be fully operational. I just have to do it with all the other ones that have custom timing. So the way to figure that out is to get to this part of traffic lights enhancement. And if we see any signals that have that gear icon, I know that I have to double check them if I had a tram go through it. So I'm going to tackle all the rest of them. And at this point, I've gone through and made all the fixes, and things appear to be working really well. That said, we have utilization on our depot to university line, but not the civic center to university line just yet. We do have vehicles deployed for that route, but they're all right here, so we're gonna have to wait for a while before we can make any adjustments to the route. And while we're waiting to see utilization, why don't we do a little bit of landscaping and detailing? Well, I want to touch on everything that we built today. I want to focus most of our attention right here in Civic Plaza. And the main reason for that is I want this whole area to feel really connected, really cohesive, and really complete. So that means adjusting every single surface, adding invisible paths, and maybe even adding some steps, trying to elevate this place to the next level. So without further ado, let's get detailing. And after about 2 hours of detailing, I present to you the highly detailed Civic Center Plaza, and I absolutely adore this part of the build. This is really, really good. I'm really, really proud of this. And after all of that work, there's only one more thing left to do. That's take inventory of what we've done with a brief city tour. And before we wrap things up for the day, I want to show you a couple of changes I made off camera and then take a look at the tram network. So the first off-camera fix is right here, right near the Civic Center Plaza, where I added a whole bunch of lighting, and I just think it really completes the area, really brings it to life, makes it feel like a place that you could be at 24/7. Just look at that. Look at all of that activity. People walking down my admittedly kind of janky steps. I've got to iterate this idea some. The steps aren't super even, but I decided not to make them super even when I realized that my pillars were terrain conforming and were pushing the ground down. It made me realize that I've got to redo this, but this is at least a good first step. Second, I assigned districts for the 2 elementary schools that I placed. So now they're only serving people within their neighborhood. And even at that, they're completely filled up. So we're gonna have to keep attacking this issue. And then finally, I adjusted the signal timing here on Walnut Street to add back that 4th phase. But this is just a dedicated transit phase now. It's just to let the trams out. I did that because all the trams were getting stuck and never making it through. You have to be able to let them all the way through this intersection right here, or only one tram can get out, and that was problematic. But now that we've done that, things are flowing smoothly for both of our lines. So let's take a look at them. And look at the strong utilization on our Depot to University line. 74% utilization. And it seems like we're clearing most of our stops. This one only has 59 passengers, got a tram behind it that will scoop all those people up. First impressions on Civic Center to University aren't so good, but then you realize we've got 2 stops right here that are completely full. My guess is there's just an ebb and a flow to this line. Sometimes you'll see massive utilization, sometimes things will drop way, way down. Yeah, and these really full stops are right here near the university. Perhaps not surprising. Look at all of those people waiting to get on. That is a thing of beauty. I love it. And then looking at overall utilization for the service, we've got about 7,000 rides per month, which is really, really good, especially in comparison to our bus service. It's about half of that with only a quarter as many lines. Now, I have to admit something. If you looked at the clock, you might have just noticed we jumped quite a ways ahead. And that's because I made one more bonus off-camera fix. I noticed that the train line here wasn't doing anything. And the main issue is that this Segunda Beach to San Martin Obispo line wasn't actually connected to San Martin Obispo. It just went to the border and turned around. So I fixed that. The utilization of this should probably increase over time as a result. And that caused me to realize something interesting. This terminus station actually has an upgrade for a tram terminal. So So it's not exactly where I would want it to be, but I think that we could make it work. So let me know in the comments below, should we use this upgrade, or are we okay having the stops for this terminus station right out front where they are right now? I do have to point out though, we have to optimize all of our transit routes and get them to work together, because as it currently sits, this is what a whole bunch of our bus stops look like, but that's a project for another day. Now, ultimately, at the end of this, I know that this was really impactful on the Juniper Terrace neighborhood, but this is generally a good move for the city on the balance. It certainly does make me wonder though, what are Ralph's plans and how is he going to protect the neighborhood? We'll have to learn that in a future episode, because I think for today we're going to leave it here. And I really hope that you've enjoyed this one. If you did, please hit the like button. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I want to thank you so much for your time today. There's a million things that you could have been doing. You decided to hang out with me and rebuild part of downtown Segunda Beach. And for that, I appreciate you and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.